Hello, Math 7 students. Welcome to our 17th video. Our 17th video is called Percents, Decimals, and Fractions. So I'm turning to my table of contents, and we find that on page 43 in my Combook. So I'm going to turn to that page, 43. And here we are. Okay, so percents, decimals, and fractions. Our goal for today. Today we will see how percents, decimals, and fractions all produce equivalent ratios. Remembering that equivalent ratios means that they are equal ratios of each other. So the question that I want you to be thinking about during this lesson is, what do percents, decimals, and fractions all have in common? Okay, so things to know. A percent literally means every 100. For example, if you have a 98%, that means that you have 98 out of 100. 98 per 100. So a percent, literally, you just take the percent sign off and you write that number in the numerator spot over 100. That's how you figure out what a percent is. Okay? A decimal is our counting system using base 10. So for example, the biggest thing that I can help you remember what decimals are is think about our place value chart. Okay, here's our place value chart that we currently use. So the decimal point sits right here. Everything to the left of the decimal is ones, tens, hundreds, and thousands. Everything to the right of the decimal is ths, so parts of a whole. So tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths, and that's how our place value chart. Decimals sit to the right of the decimal point, and then whole numbers sit to the left of the decimal point. So that's a way to remember it. Okay. The third one that we have to work with today is fractions. We've been spending a lot of time with fractions. Fractions are a part of a whole. An example of this would be, here's a picture of 4 pieces, and 2 of them are shaded, so it would be 2/4. 2 out of the 4 are shaded. Okay, so I know this is probably a very big review for all of you, but I wanted to make sure that everybody understands very, very clearly what a percent is, what a decimal is, and what a fraction is. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to take that information and we're going to notice something. So if I display in front of you 98%, 0 and 98 hundredths, or 98 hundredths, what do you notice about all 3 of these things? 98%, 0 and 98 hundredths, or 98 hundredths, what do you notice? And if you said that they are all the same, you are correct. And that's exactly what we're focusing on in our lesson today, is we are going to figure out how to take one form of these 3 and turn them into the other. So 98% is the percent form, 0 and 98 hundredths is the decimal form, and 98 hundredths is the fraction form. All 3 of these, even though they look different, mean the exact same thing. And so basically the whole premise of our lesson is percents equal decimals, which equal fractions. Fractions equal decimals, which equals percent. Decimals equal percents, which equals fractions. All 3 of them are the exact same thing. They just look different. The percent has a percent sign. The decimal usually has a 0 and a decimal point, and then the numbers, and then the fraction always has the numerator and the denominator. But the thing that you need to know is that all 3 of them are the same. Your goal is to be able to move back and forth through all of them. So, for example, if I gave you 10 20ths, the question is, could you take this fraction and turn it into a percent? Well, if you remember that a percent is per 100, then we can, because how do you get from 20 to 100? Multiply by 5. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other. 10 times 5 is 50. Now we have 50 hundredths, which is the same as, read it out loud, 50 hundredths, which is the same as the percent, because when you're working with a percent, you take the numerator and put the percent symbol. So it would be 50%. So do you see how we can take a fraction, turn it into a fraction with a denominator of 100, turn that into a decimal, and then from there, turn it into a percent. And that's the skill, or that is the concept that we are learning in today's class. So we are taking what we're given, and we're turning it into the other two. So if we're given a fraction, like we were here, we take the fraction, we turn it into a decimal, and then we take that decimal and we turn it into a percent. And you need to be able to go in any direction. So for example, what if I gave you a percent? Let's say the percent was 38%. Well, I need to take the percent and I need to turn it into, I don't know, easiest one for me would be fractions. So let's turn it into a fraction. How do we take the percent and turn it into the fraction? Remember, all you have to do this is take the percent symbol off, put the number in the numerator, and the denominator is always 100. Okay, because it's a percent, the denominator is always 100. So it would be 38 hundredths. Okay, well, read it out loud, and very easily you can take that fraction and turn it into a decimal. Read it out loud and write what you say. 38 hundredths. So I know I don't have any holes. There's my decimal point. 38 hundredths. That's how you write it as a decimal. Okay? So as you're seeing, this process is pretty simple. Okay, what if I'm starting out, because I started out with a fraction here, I started out with a percent here. What if I start out with a decimal? Let's say that my decimal was 0 and 22 hundredths. Well, again, all you have to do is read it out loud and write what you say. So 0 and 22 hundredths. Well, that looks just like that as a fraction. And then I remember that this is a percent because all I have to do is take the numerator and put a percent sign behind it. And I have 22%. So this is the decimal. This is the fraction. And this is the percent. Okay? Boys and girls, it is that simple. That is what this entire lesson is all about today. Okay? All right, so let's go back really quickly to the question. What do percents, decimals, and fractions all have in common? What do you notice about all of them? What do you notice about all of them? What do you notice about all of them? I've said it a lot, hoping that you guys can recognize it. So you need to think about your answer and be able to answer that for me when we get into class tomorrow. Today we will see how percents, decimals, and fractions all produce equivalent ratios. They're all equal. Everything that we did is equal. There is not anything else for you to solve. There is one more page to this, but it's very quick. And basically we are going to be making a flip book tomorrow in class, okay? But I do need you to make this page ready for gluing in your flip book that we made tomorrow in class. So the title that I want you to put up on the top is Percents, Decimals, and Fractions, and then I want you to write the how-to flip book, okay? And then we're going to glue it right here. We're going to make it in class tomorrow, and then we're going to glue it in here so that you have it as a resource. The flip book is going to be about changing a fraction into a percent and a decimal, changing a decimal into a fraction and a percent, changing a percent into a fraction and a decimal. Did I say that already? So anyways, we're going to have a guide that shows us how to do all three changes. So fraction into a decimal into a percent into a fraction into a decimal into a fraction into a percent. We're going to have a little flip book that shows us how to do all of that. All right? And that's it, guys. We are going to spend some more time hands-on in class working through problems tomorrow, but that's all that I have for you. Okay. All right. Have a good one.